Okay, so this is the last the last lecture of this term, and then we're going to go through the testing and evaluation. So next week is going to be the test, and I will set it up tomorrow. That's my day off, quote unquote, right? And you're going to have all 5 days to complete that test. And as I said before, it is going to be done the same way as all the other tests that we have done online. Okay. Now, as I said, today is going to be a very short lesson. However, as I said, it's going to be one of the more important lessons as far as safety is concerned, and possibly life-saving one. All right. So, well, we all know we have studied the confined space. We have studied the what do you call it? The arc flash, and other dangers that possibly have to do with working in the industrial environment. One thing I really want you to know that sometimes there are hidden dangers that you might not be aware of. Okay? Because while you are aware of electricity, even though it's kind of silent and it's not manifesting itself too much until something happens, and then run for your life if you can run 100 miles an hour instantly, right? So so that's also the other some other mechanical obvious dangers like configuration when it comes to confined space. Yes, there could be some machinery that is working and things are waving or swinging up and down, left and right, and you will see that with your eyes, you will hear that with your ears, you will feel that with your whole being. So naturally you're going to stay away from some of that. All right, now electricity is not as much as that. Mechanical stuff is more obvious. All right, now there's some other thing that well, also we know things like asbestos, right? Asbestos has really tiny fibers that basically get you inhale them, and once you inhale them, there's no way to get them out. They stay in you. All right. Same as polymers. I still can't understand why some people still burn plastics in their backyards or in some sort of wood burning ovens, and they will throw a plastic bag or a bunch of them, and they would call it utilizing. You're burning polymers. When it comes to burning polymers, there's smoke associated with that, and it goes into the air. The whole neighborhood breathes that. Once you breathe that in, there is no way to get it out. Your body does not know what to do with that. All right, so it has no defense mechanisms against that. It stays in you, and yes, it is deadly and it's carcinogenic. Carcinogenic means causing cancer. Right? So asbestos is something that everybody pretty much heard of. There's one more thing that is that you might, if you don't know what to look for, you might actually put yourself into some hazardous situation. Right now, here is the thing. That's the MMMF. All right. All right. Man made, if I could get my marker to work properly. Man-made mineral fiber. What is that? Man-made mineral fiber. Well, sometimes what you're going to have to do is run wires, because electrical business of being electrician, you are supposed to know how the machinery works, how electricity works. You're supposed to know the code and all that stuff that goes with it. And we are connecting things and making things work in our lab environment. However, when it comes to the reality of the situation, you're going to install things in real buildings or in real industrial environment, connecting machines or just running electrical installation in residential or commercial buildings. Now, those buildings, especially buildings, right, when it comes to the construction industry, buildings are insulated. And years ago, it used to be asbestos. Asbestos is pretty good insulator. It's actually, until further studies were conducted based on experience, not only it's a good insulator, it's also a pretty good killer. All right, so it will kill. All right, so insulation, man-made mineral fiber. Quite often you're going to see something like this. All right, let me just get the. Can I get this big picture here? Well, anyways, it looks like this. Here, where is this thing? 21 fall. Large icons. Oh, I don't seem to have it. Anyways, there is an insulation that is sprayed right into the ceiling. What do you see here? There's already some kind of construction going on in there. Something maybe was mounted onto the ceiling or whatnot. Quite often you're going to be asked to perform different types of installation, running the EMT piping or otherwise devices that you're going to have to mount in the ceiling, and sometimes you're going to have to drill into the ceiling and go and mess around with the insulation. Right? Now, there is that MMMF, right, man-made mineral fiber, and that it looks like this. Basically, that's what you're seeing in the picture. It looks like a dried out sewage sprayed onto the ceiling. Pretty good insulation. Now, there's other type of insulation, and I forgot what that is. I'm gonna have to find out. That is not the man-made mineral fiber. It's not as dangerous. Pretty much everything, even as regular house dust, is dangerous. It's just the severity of the hazard is basically what counts, right? And you can't escape having regular dust or street dust. You're breathing asbestos, when you're driving on the highway, because what do you think the brakes are made of? There's some asbestos elements in the car brakes. When the cars brake, they basically shear off some of the elements that the brakes are made of, and some of it is asbestos. So we all humans, if you live on planet Earth, you're always exposed to something. It's just the severity of it. It's basically what makes the difference. Yeah, nice fortune fire gathering on. Thank you. So sometimes you're going to see something like this. Now, it could be MMMF or it could be not. You are still going to see that in the ceilings, mostly in the ceiling. It's just, ceilings are sprayed with insulation. And when you see that, there is no way to tell whether it's MMMF or is it something else that is not as dangerous as the MMMF. And by the way, I'm not afraid to say that MMMF is just as bad for you as asbestos, if you breathe that in. Same, the fibers of that are so tiny that they actually go inside you when you inhale, and they don't know how to get out. The body doesn't know how to get rid of them. It stays, and yes, it is carcinogenic, right? Which means it can cause cancer. The only way to tell whether this thing is MMMF or not is to take a sample and take it to a lab, and some sort of a laboratory environment, like industrial, whatever they do, they are able to check that for you and confirm whether it's it or it is not. Otherwise, when you just have, even if you look at magnifying glass or just a microscope or whatever, you won't be able to tell whether it's MMF or not. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, you are supposed to, let's say, here's what you could do. You talk to the general. What is a general on the construction site? A general is the main guy or woman that is in charge of the whole construction site, and is basically the head person that is hired by the general contractor that oversees the whole construction. And there's usually that one main person from that company, and is the general contractor. In short, people refer to them as the general. So what do you do when you see something like that and you are supposed to go near that? What you do is you go to the general and you ask for the documentation on this insulation. They are supposed to know that. If they don't, you can pretty much refuse to do any work that is anywhere near that, because it could be MMMF. And it just takes a little bit of breathing it. And you don't know how much of that got in you, right? So if the general presents you with the documentation that no, this is not MMMF, this is some other type of insulation, whatever it is, it's not. Or sometimes they're going to say, yes, it is, here's the documentation, you can familiarize yourself with it, and go ahead. Then there's certain type of procedures involved when it comes to dealing with that. If that thing falls off the ceiling onto the floor, you're not supposed to just sweep it. You're supposed to squirt some water into it to make it, to give it some moisture, so the particles of that do not get into the air for people to breathe, right? And if you really have to do any work around that, there's the procedures, there's training, and there is specific personal protective equipment, which basically it's a small version of a spacesuit, right? Just like if you would be wearing the same type of equipment if you were dealing with asbestos. Right? So that's basically what I wanted you to know. How do I know that? Well, years and years ago, I've been in business for about 30 years or so, right? Years and years ago, I had to install something that's called a sound masking speakers, and we'll talk about sound masking, what it is, in the next during the next term. Right? So basically, there will be speakers that would hang from the ceiling. They would point towards the ceiling and bounce off the sound from the ceiling into the rest of the whatever waiting rooms or whatnot. Sound masking is to prevent you from hearing other people's conversations. You can hear what they're talking about. Well, you can hear that they're talking. You just don't know what they're saying, right? So that's the idea of sound masking. And I was supposed to hang a bunch of those in one of the facilities. And I got my ladder, I got my drills. I had to drill some spikes into the ceiling and hang those speakers. And this thing was full of this insulation. That was really long time ago. I was quite young, still young, but not as young as then, like 25 years ago or maybe 30 years ago. But I just went and started drilling. And the general taps me on my shoulder as I was down. He goes, look, you probably don't know what that is. And he saw me that I was new into the business and whatnot. He goes, here's the documentation. This is the MMMF. I want you to stop doing what you're doing. First, read these papers, talk to your boss, because they sent you here to do this. And then you can actually refuse the work, because you need some special protective equipment for that, and there's certain procedures. I don't want you to go anywhere near that doing what you're doing, right? Because I was drilling holes in the ceiling and basically messing around with that insulation. It was the MMMF, right? So I had some of that in me already, right? Hopefully not too much, right? So I want you to know that something like that exists. Other types of dangers, if you smell something funny, like, well, what could you smell that something is really funny? Chlorine smells really funny. It's actually a burning type. You inhale that and it burns your lungs. If you need to run any wires, especially under swimming pools and other things that involve chlorine, do not go there without. Basically, it should be considered as a confined space, big time confined space. All right. So I just want you to know that if you don't feel 100% that this job is not 100% safe, well, nothing is 100%, but you know what I mean. then you can refuse the job and you can confirm. And if there is, and you can request if there's any special procedures or special PPE in order to confirm your job. Even, and this, your boss or the owner of the company that you're working for or the management should not get you in trouble. Now, the reality of the situation is that sometimes it depends who you work for, what kind of company that is. There's a slight possibility that they might not like that you're inquiring about things like that. Now, don't go overboard and just, here's the room that I have to go in, and according to the industry standards, I'm supposed to have so much, certain temperature, so I feel comfortable. And what else can I find in this thing? Of course, you're gonna get let go, right? When it comes to things like that. But if there is something serious such as this, if you see this kind of insulation on the ceiling, make sure that there's not just somebody tells you. Make sure you see the documentation that this is not triple MF, man-made mineral fiber. Right? Short lesson, but hopefully, and you know what? There's a big situation. There's a chance. And it's not a small chance that once in a while along your journey as an electrician or any kind of other tradesperson, you might come across a situation like this that you're going to have to deal with that. I want you to pay attention to things like that because even if the company that you work for, who knows who owns it, what kind of a person that is, or people, as far as the management, some of them are, they follow this industry procedures more than others, and the others that don't follow, they should. But the reality is that sometimes you come across all kinds of characters as you go, and you will find out, you will see. Then even if somebody gets upset with you over something like that, then it's better to get even fired or let go than inhale some of that stuff. You're going to find yourself another job. Then inhale that, and at the end of the day, you are the one who's going to go home with that in you, not the person who hired you and gets upset with you. All right. Is fire retardant MMMF? Not necessarily. Basically, if you see something that you don't know what that is, there's nothing wrong with coming up to the general and just getting a little bit of information on what is this thing that we're working with, and is it dangerous? Is not? Are there any special procedures that you're required to follow in order to, and if you don't get answers, be hesitant. There's different situations that you're going to come across. Right? Harder to get new lungs than a new job. Yes, that's true. All right. Cool, guys. This is basically as far as I'm going to take you with this course. It was an absolute pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to working with you again when we talk about the network cabling starting January. Right. We're going to have some fun dealing with the extra low voltage components such as data cabling, computer networks, and other telecommunications devices. Right. All right, guys. If there's any specific matters that you want to discuss with me or anything like that, by all means, you know what my email is. Contact me, and I'll do whatever I can to make your life easier in order for you to get as much as possible before you leave the doors of our school. Okay? Guys, have a good one. Thank you very much, and I'll see you when I see you. Oh, where's that?